Hello and welcome. My name's Sissy and I'm Timothy's widow. Today's video is a mix of educational content, and I'm also going to intermingle some of my personal experiences with my grief journey in throughout the content. So basically what we'd want to do is compare the second year of grief against your first year of grief. Is the second year of grief harder than the first year? So experiencing grief is a deeply personal and complex process, and there is no one-size-fits-all explanation for how it unfolds. That is, my grief journey may be, and most likely is going to be, totally different than yours. One thing, however, that can be very common among grieving individuals is that some of us will find that the second year of grief can be much more challenging than the first. I put together a list of several factors that could contribute as to why that second year might seem harder for some of us. So if you're ready, go ahead and get your cup of coffee, sit down with me, get comfortable, and let's go over some of those factors and discuss the second year. So what are the factors that could contribute as to why the second year may seem harder for some? Number one, the easing of shock and denial. In the initial phase of grief, shock and denial can act as a protective mechanism, buffering us from the full impact of our loss. During the first year, we're still adjusting to the reality of our loss, which momentarily shields us from the depth of our emotions. As the shock and denial begin to fade, the raw emotions may surface more intensely in the second year. So the difference between the first year and the second year is supposed to be, in the second year, the shock and denial are easing. Is that true? I'm not sure, to be honest. The first year, I know the first 3 months, I basically don't remember much of anything. I know I cried a lot. I know I didn't sleep. I'm not sure how often I was eating. I didn't know what day of the week it was. I didn't know if it was day or night. I was lucky if I slept for maybe 15 minutes at a time after about the first week. I don't know. The best way that I can describe it is like being in a dark cloud of thought, and you just have no comprehension of what's going on around you or anything like that. I actually managed to book a flight home to my parents for Christmas. I honestly couldn't tell you how I managed to do that. I think I flew American, and I just vaguely remember the people being so incredibly kind. I remember getting to the airport and having to do the security check, and they wanted you to remove all your jewelry, and I didn't want to remove his wedding ring. I had it on a necklace, and I didn't want to remove it, and I remember losing it and crying, and the cat was meowing because she was scared. She had no clue. And I remember this fellow was young, and he pulled me aside, and he's like, honey, you never have to take that wedding ring off if you don't want to. And he helped me with the kitty cat, the security checks and all of that. I remember having somebody help me get the kitty cat carrier under the seat. And I remember getting off, I think I got off the plane last, and I remember somebody took one of the flight attendants' small carry-on luggage through the plane, because by that point I had messed my knee up, my shoulder was killing me, and of course I was just an emotional wreck. Then I had a several-hour drive from the Pittsburgh airport, which was insane. I had no clue where I was going. Thank goodness for GPS on the phone, but it was routing me on all these country roads. And I remember driving around and thinking, where am I? Am I still just circling Pittsburgh? Have I gone down to West Virginia and not realized it? I mean, I was like, oh my gosh, I am never going to get home. And I was so incredibly exhausted. I probably should not have been driving. I should not have been behind the wheel of a car. After a couple of hours, I'm on this road, and one of the buildings triggered something in my memory, and I'm like, have I been on this road before? Now, my sister does live between mom and dad's and Pittsburgh. So I have been on some of the roads out there, but it had been since like the late 90s since I had been. And that's a very long time. So I kept driving, and I'm thinking, I have no clue where I'm at. And I heard that I think that it is, there's going to be a turnoff down here to the right. And I got down a couple more miles, and I was like, oh my God, it is the road. And I remember looking over at the kitty cat and saying, we are almost home. I mean, I knew it was like another 40 minutes, give or take, with the traffic. But it was home territory. It was the area. Once I turned that right and went down the road a bit and then did a left, then it was like roads that I had been on before, and I knew where I was at, and I wasn't going to get lost, and I could turn the GPS off. And it was just like this sigh of relief came over me. And despite the fact that I thought I could barely keep my eyes open, we made it home. And that helped a little bit. That helped bring me out of that horrible fog. So in some ways that helped. They say that the raw emotions can surface in the second year. I was about 6.5 months in when I hit an incredible stage of raw, intense anger. And it was so bad, it scared me to the point that I called my doctor. And I think I needed to go in for an appointment anyhow, but yeah, we had a long discussion about that. And those intense emotions, intense anger, it is normal. It's not pleasant. It is kind of scary. And to have it just come out, like, it just hit me. Just like one day I was, I had come back home after the holidays, and one day it's like I'm still crying. I'm trying to figure out what the heck am I doing when I'm, where's it going? And then the next day it was like, bam. And I first noticed it with the pharmacy clerk when I was picking up a prescription. And I feel so incredibly bad because I went into the store, they did not have my prescription ready, and they were like, oh, well, if you come back like in an hour, go do your grocery shopping. And I remember just yelling at her and saying, lady, I don't grocery shop here. The only reason I'm here is because my doctor used you for the pricing of options. And I'm like, I don't want to grocery shop. Do you understand? I lost my husband. I just want to pick up my prescription and I want to go home. But it was a lot meaner than that. And there were some other words in there. And I remember going back out to the car afterwards, and on the way home, I was like, my God, what have I done? Because I have worked as a cashier. I have worked in a pharmacy. I have worked in a clothing store. I have worked in a very familiar national brand store. Two different national brand stores. I have never done that because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end. And I have never done that to a cashier in my life. I felt so incredibly horrible for doing it. And it was scary. And that way it's harder because you don't have the control of your emotions at times, and it's more intense emotions or complicated emotions. It's not just sitting there crying or being exhausted. There are just so many emotions. I can't even explain it. I mean, obviously, if you know, you know. But yeah, so that point didn't even wait for the second year for me. That was like half a year in, and oh gosh, just absolutely horrible. Another factor that could contribute to why the second year may seem harder for some would be decreased support. In the immediate aftermath of a loss, friends and family often rally round, providing support and comfort. However, as time passes, this support network might gradually diminish, leaving us feeling more isolated and alone in grief during the second year. So let's talk about decreased support a little bit. Obviously, during the first year, I had my family, despite the fact that the majority of them were over 1,000 miles away. As for his family, it didn't even take 2 months, I don't think, and they were gone. I mean, I hate to say that. I really do, because I don't want to be a mean person about that. But my husband and I, we used to try to get family get-togethers going on at his mother's place. And Thanksgiving was one that him and I always tried to do. And obviously, that particular Thanksgiving wasn't going to happen. And at that time, obviously, it was before I had gone back home, my parents' house. And granted, okay, so here's how things went. Like, at his service, there's like these people there, okay? Some of his family. And you know how it is. Everybody's like, oh, if you need anything, give us a call, blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes. So here's the thing. When you're first grieving the loss of your spouse, especially in the first couple months, I don't even know sometimes that you're anybody or text anybody or anything like that. And I get, like I said, it depends. Everybody is different in their grief journey, their timing and how they deal with it, and their energy levels and their emotional levels. All of that is very different for everybody. As I said, I mean, I did get to the point where I was a night person, and daytime I kind of tossed and turned and slept a little bit. Well, you can't call people and text people at like 3 in the morning, okay? Because the majority of them, they still have their life. They still have their jobs, whatever the case may be. But yeah, it was actually the weekend prior to Thanksgiving. And I remember seeing on Facebook all these posts of all of his family, how they had gotten together, and one of the comments was, all of the family was together and we had such a happy time, and it was great to see the love and support. It felt like a freaking slap in the face to me because of the number of years that my husband and I were together, even before we got married, all that he had done for his mother and everything. And I don't think that I knowingly or intentionally ever did anything to these people to make them feel like I didn't want them in my life or that I didn't like them or anything of that nature. I don't think I ever knowingly or intentionally tried to be mean to these people. So that just felt to me, that was like an incredible slap in the face, like a kick. It was like a kick in the stomach. And I remember getting so incredibly upset and angry over that because I literally felt like I was garbage. Like I was just tossed aside with the garbage to be picked up, when they did the garbage run. And I thought, what a lie. What a lie. You are all loving and happy. Really? And I remember thinking to myself, yo, you just lost your brother. Okay. I'm not going to say anything about his mom because I have a lot of respect for her and I love all the things that she did for me. And, that's its own separate private story. But I'm like, you two just lost your brother, your eldest brother. And you're saying that you're all happy and all the loving families together. And I'm like, not even so much as a text message. I mean, sure, maybe I wouldn't have been able to attend, but maybe I would have loved to have gone because like I said, I loved his mother. She was the best mother-in-law ever. Absolutely. Like she was the best mother-in-law ever. Um, and I'm like, I would have appreciated just a text message saying, hey, if you're able to, if you feel like coming, this is what we're going to do. Please come if you can. Okay? Please come if you can. Okay? I would have been content with that. I would have been happy with that. I would have been so freaking appreciative of that that it wouldn't even have been funny. But no. So I was just like, oh, okay, fine. And of course, by that time, my mother had gone back home, and I remember I had called and I was talking to her and I was crying about that. And I'm like, I have nobody to spend the holidays with, blah, 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 how that goes. And she gave me some words of wisdom and then we hung up the phone call and then she called back later and she said she was so incredibly mad at them for doing that because she said they're all within a half hour, give or take, drive. They are freaking really close in the grand scheme of things, where my parents are over 1,000 miles away. And she's like, and I remember my mother, basically was like, leave it. It just, that's not the generation that my mother was raised in. My mother would have never done that. Some of us kids, or some of her kids, I guess I should say, have had failed relationships and failed marriages. But you know what? If something would have happened to one of those prior relationships, my mother would have never turned her back on them, no matter why the relationship had failed. It. There's like an ex-husband. Um, some ex-boyfriends, ex-girlfriends, that type of thing mixed between us siblings. My mother would have never turned her back on any of them. Okay. She wasn't raised to be like that. So it angered her, I think, even more than it had hung up with her. I was like, oh, okay. They're going to be like that. Okay, fine. The heck with them. I don't need them in my life. Right. It upset me that my mother got that upset. And by the time she had called me and told me that, I'm like, Mom, I'm okay. I'm okay. If they're going to do, and, whatever, if they're happy, they're happy. And if they're not, whatever. I don't have time to deal with that type of behavior in my life. And it just upset me that it upset my mother so bad. So yeah, that decrease in support from there, that was gone within months. Now, I will say that when I came back, which was still in the first year, but as we moved into the second year, I have gained some support from neighbors that I knew them to see them, but that was about it. I didn't know a lot about their personal lives or who they were or what they did, that kind of thing. But incredibly, I have gained support, extra support from them since coming back. And when I went back home again the second time to Pennsylvania, they were really wonderful as far as checking my mail, keeping an eye on my place and stuff like that. So I have gained some support. We've had a couple new neighbors that had moved in the building, the building next to me and everything. And they have been incredibly supportive. Obviously they never got to meet my husband, but, I've gained a little bit of support. The people I worked with, pretty much gone as well. It's like, oh, okay, so you're not able to function to come back to work. Okay, fine, we forgot about you already. Next. And literally, that's how companies are. In some ways, you are just a number to them. I mean, I have to say that when I was employed there, they were a wonderful company to work for. I love the majority of the. I did consider them an extended part of my family. And I really, I overall it was, they treated the employees pretty well, I think, all considering. But yeah, once you realize that you're not in an emotional state to do a job where you need to have your cognitive and analysis skills. Yeah, and it's like, okay, next resume, come on, who are we gonna hire next? And you're gone, your history, and you're forgotten about. So yeah, and basically all of that happened the first year. So I don't know. Second year, I'm not quite finished with. Have I built a new type of friendship or support system? Basically, no. Just those few neighbors are basically it. And my family. I haven't met anybody new. His family hasn't bothered to reach out to me or contact me in any way, which is sad. It's sad because I have his cell phone is still active, phone's still the same. I do have a Facebook account, his Facebook account. They know where I live. So to me, I just think, okay, fine, you're going to be that way for whatever reason, you know. It is what it is. And I'm thinking, they know how to contact me. They always have. So I'm like, okay, you've reached no effort out to me. So, it's basically like F you and keep on going. And I'm hoping that in time, as more things settle in, that I meet some new people and make some new friendships. Will they be the same type of support that I could have got from family? I don't know. Will they, I don't know. But yeah, support definitely decreases. And I've heard that from so many that the in-laws like vanished, or that there's so many different types of scenarios that go into that. Like maybe the in-laws owned the house that a couple was renting from, or whatever the case is, and they kick the surviving spouse out, even if the surviving spouse had grandchildren. I have heard from so many people that, aunts, uncles, grandparents, it's like they want nothing to do with you. And to me, on one hand, I'm very thankful that my husband and I did not have children, because I wouldn't want to put them through. Because that, to me, that's not right. I'm like, wait a minute. This child or children, whatever the case may be, is a member of someone's family, and to hear how people say what the in-laws have done, I'm like, that poor little child, especially when they're little children. It's like that poor little child has done nothing wrong other than lose a parent. So I guess on one hand, I am thankful that it is just me, because I don't have to worry about those second upon young children. So I am thankful for that. The third factor that can contribute as to why the second year may seem harder for some is what is known as the anniversary effect. Many of us may experience the anniversary of the loss as a significant trigger for renewed grief. The second year can also bring another wave of first anniversaries without our loved one, like the first birthday, holiday season, or other meaningful dates, causing grief to resurface with increased intensity. So for many of us, it just depends the date of your loss as to when some of these anniversary trigger effects are going to happen. For me, I lost my husband early in October, so I had a very rapid succession of events such as Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and his birthday, all by the time January had ended. So that's October, November, that's 4 months, right? Yeah, October, November, December, actually 3.5, because of the dates. So within 3.5 months, I had a lot of firsts. And that was one of the reasons why I had chosen to go home for Christmas, just because I had a conversation with my doctor, and we had decided, because I had no support from his family whatsoever, that it was best for me to be with. So even though I didn't get to spend Thanksgiving with them, I did get to spend Christmas, New Year's, his birthday, my mother's birthday. They were all like boom, 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 like within what, 2.5 weeks. So that for me was helpful to be back there rather than down here by myself. But then, you've got all them summer holidays and summer events and summer memories, that will trigger you. Then I rapidly had, my birthday, our 10th wedding anniversary, and the day that he passed away, boom, 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 all within like, what, 2.5 weeks or something like that. So it's like, for me, everything kind of happens boom, boom, boom. And then I have a period of time to recover from those kind of things before the next succession of events. Like I said, for some people, it just varies. The timing varies. So sometimes you may have a longer period of time to adjust between events that can be triggering. And yes, I didn't realize how bad those type of things would trigger me as far as things would go. So my doctor was very wise in making that suggestion that I go home, not just the first time, but the second time, because he was like very wise when he told me. He said, you don't want to spend your birthday, your wedding anniversary, and then the day that you lost him by yourself, because that is too close of a time period. There's like 7 days in between my birthday and our wedding anniversary, and then there were less than 2 weeks, like a week and a half between our wedding anniversary and the first anniversary for when I lost him. So in one way it was like I had a lot of that heavy crap the first year, and then some of it coming into the second year. So it was, I don't know if it's a blessing that it was split like that or not. I really don't know. If anybody wants to comment on that, please do. I'd love to hear how not that I want to hear how your experience went, because I know it's awful, but if you want to share your experience, I guess would be a better way to say it. Maybe provide some insights, some tips as to how you got through it. Might be beneficial for others. I just know that for me, it was definitely the best decision for me to be rather than here, which meant 2 different trips back home. One, two, my poor cat got a lot of flying miles, but surprisingly she flies better than I do, actually. I don't know how that's possible, but I think she handled it better than I did. I hate to fly, but when you're looking at over 1,000 miles to go back home, and obviously I wasn't in a condition to be driving the first time, and the second time I just wanted to leave. Like, I wanted to know that when I locked the door and left that morning, to go to the airport, that when I went to bed that night, it would be in a completely different state, completely different environment, and done, you know. So, yeah. I actually am wondering if the third year may seem harder or not. I don't know. If anybody watches this video and you are into your third year or late second year, depending on how the timing for you went, I'd love for you to share. I'd love for you to share your experience in the comments for us. Might be very beneficial and helpful for others. So the fourth factor that can contribute to the second year seeming harder would be reality of life changes. Obviously, the first year is filled with logistical tasks to handle, such as funeral arrangements, legal matters, and settling estates. These activities obviously can keep us busy and distracted from fully processing our emotions. In the second year, as the reality of life without our loved one sets in, we obviously confront a new set of challenges and life changes that can be overwhelming. I think of the reality of life changes as the secondary losses. They're going to seem to settle in, and they're going to settle in with you very roughly. Obviously, we all have different situations, but for many of us, myself included, we ask ourselves the question, should I move? Should I stay in my home? Do I need to get a job or change my job? Do I know how to do this? Do I know how to do that? How do I do this without him? Or he knew how to do this. I have no clue. There's just so much with the secondary losses that it would probably take a whole day to discuss that topic. And there's a lot of things for me that I will say I'm going to keep them private at the moment. I don't feel like I'm at a place where I want to share a lot of that information, but yeah, I think as you move into the second year and as you start to go through the second year, that reality of he's not here and he's the one who knew how to handle this or do that or would know what to do. The reality of all that crap just settles in, and I think it's much harsher of a reality versus the initial first part. Because the first part, like I said, you're just kind of a zombie. You're just moving in a state of fog, and if something needs done, you kind of look at it like, oh yeah, okay, this is a necessity, and okay, fine. However it works to get it done, you do it. Anything that's not for me, I think anything that was not a necessity got tossed. Just like a lot of the stuff that I need to sort through and go through, if it wasn't an urgent necessity, I pretty much box stuff up and put it in the bedroom, and I don't go in there. I don't look at it. Because I have times where I can deal with it very well. I have other times where it's like I just know that it would be a losing battle, so I just don't work on it at that particular time. But I think it's very harsh. Those reality of life changes is the best way that I know how to describe it. The fifth factor that can contribute to the second year seeming harder for some is avoidance and delayed grief. Some individuals may initially avoid confronting their grief or suppress their emotions during the first year, either consciously or unconsciously. However, avoiding grief does not make it go away. It can resurface more intensely in the second year when the emotional backlog becomes harder to manage. I don't think that, I don't think I can really speak on this one. I don't think I ever really, I don't think I've really gone through a time frame where I've avoided or experience delayed grief. If I have, it must have been very momentary or short-lived, because this one doesn't really resonate with me. But I do know a lot of people. I do know a lot of people from the different grief sessions. There have been some who have experienced this. There was one individual who literally went straight from services, the husband, into a pattern of going back to work and adding continuing education and certification courses on top of what was going on. I don't even think I don't even really think there was a need or necessity as far as job career for these classes. But it just seemed like it was something that this individual needed to do. And I know others have said, it's a way to keep busy because you've got all this that you want to do, and so you're putting this pressure of successfully completing classes and certifications. And so some of us have said that, we kind of feel like that would not be the maybe not be the best thing to do, because are you really allowing yourself the time that you need by yourself personally to deal with the loss? So like I said, I don't know that I can really talk very well on this particular item. So we'll go ahead and move to number 6. And the sixth factor that can contribute to the second year seeming harder for some is rebuilding identity. Grief can significantly impact our sense of self and identity. During the first year, we're simply focusing on getting through each day, each hour, each minute, each week. We're just simply trying to make it from one second to the next. In the second year, we may need to confront questions about who we are now and how we fit into the world without our loved one. This one resonates with me because this is where I am right now. My basic question is, who the hell am I now? I know that I'm not married. I don't consider myself a single person yet. So obviously that means I am not at a point where I would be ready to start looking for a new love in my life. I don't even know if I will ever get to that point, but that's where I am with that particular aspect is, okay, fine. I guess we won't consider me married, but I'm not single. And just so y'all know, I hate frickin' forms that have you check things like, are you single? Are you widowed? And stuff like that. I hate those frickin' forms. I really hate them, because I've had some people come back and say, well, your husband's been 2 years. You really can't check widow anymore. You should check single. And I'm like, I don't consider myself single, as I guess because for me single has the connotation of being available and on the market looking for a new romance. So maybe that's why I don't like it. But I don't know. I don't like those stupid freaking boxes. I think it's nobody's business. It's like you're either married or you're not married, and that's all they should have to know. But it is what it is. Yeah, how do I fit into this world? I have no freaking clue. I'm not even sure what state I'm supposed to be living in yet. I really don't know. There's a very large portion of me that wants to move back to my home state. I spent 30 some years there before I moved south. Do I feel like I fit in down here? Not necessarily. And I think part of that is because fact as to what his family did. I think a lot of that maybe ruined my opinion of the state that I am now in. It's like, okay, fine. It's like I no longer have family down here, so why the H am I here, right? The the job market I thought would be much better to return to. I'm finding out that it's absolutely freaking ridiculous. Not so much because the jobs don't exist, because of the fact that in conversations, when you're doing the interviews, they want to know why you have a gap in your employment, and you tell them that your husband passed away unexpectedly and that you spent some time back in your home state with your parents. And they'll be like, oh, okay, blah, blah, blah. Well, your skills are really good. We're going to present you, blah, blah, blah. And if you're chosen for the second interview, blah, blah, blah. I feel like once I say that, that is held discriminatorily against me. I really do, because I know for positions that I have applied for, I am possibly overqualified for, but the position itself has seemed like something that I would really embrace as a career, right? So that had been something that was just driving me insane, because I'm like, I had an opportunity to not force myself to return back to work because I was not cognitively functioning. I didn't have the analysis skills that I needed to do my job in a satisfactory way. Hell, I couldn't even do my job in a less than satisfactory way. I mean, that's how bad my cognitive functions sucked at the time. And having the ability to return home, I feel like, okay, you don't have a husband, and you left the state, you left your job. So I feel like they're holding that all against me. But some of these people, I would love to just sit down and say, hey, the last time that I was home for Christmas with my parents was like, I think the year 2001. And I did not spend another Christmas with them until 2021. My parents are elderly. So I think I was justified in going home and spending some holidays with my parents, because obviously we're at a point where, I hate to say it, but there won't be that many more. Do you know what I mean? Because my parents are elderly. So I'm like, there's a part of me just wants to say, do not freaking hold that against me, okay? Because that's part of my identity, is my parents are elderly. I went 20 years without Christmas or Thanksgiving, 21 years without a Thanksgiving with them. And I'm like, I think I'm entitled to that, because I lost time with my husband. I didn't know that was coming. It was very unexpected. So I am a firm believer in the fact that you take those moments with your family and your loved ones, and you take them, every single one that you can possibly get, and you enjoy them, because we just don't know. From day to day, we just don't know what's going to happen. So I struggle with that part, because I'm like, how can I rebuild my identity when it seems like that is being a discriminatory thing against me? And that doesn't help, because you're like trying to figure out, well, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing job-wise? I am too young to retire, okay? But I'm too young to retire. I guess people feel maybe that I'm too old to hire. I'm like in that stupid age bracket, right? It's like, I have lots of skills. I have lots of abilities, people. I have been through different various backgrounds. I think I can handle myself in a professional setting pretty well. I can handle myself with irate customers, vendors who are complaining that they haven't received a payment. I can handle myself with people who are saying, well, we don't think we can get that to you in time. I can handle those type of situations. And I have the critical skills and the analysis skills to go through and interpret things and make decisions on them, right? I still have that part of my identity. So it's a very confusing time. It's a very confusing time, and I think because of the job thing that really was just emphasizing the fact that right now I don't know who the hell I am. I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to be living. I don't really know what I am supposed to be doing. So I think yeah, this second year for that is a hell of a lot harder than I would have ever thought that it would have been. I don't know what your experience may have been or is, but again, feel free to comment on it because I think it's good for us to share experiences and tips and advice. So, yeah, just please feel free to comment on this one because I am finding this, I think, almost as difficult as actually losing my. So, the seventh factor that could contribute as to why the second year may seem so much harder for some of us is the feeling of being left behind. While the world around us continues to move forward, we may feel stuck in our grief during the second year, leading to feelings of frustration and isolation. And I think this is generally true. For some of us, it may be harder than others. Like, I know for me, my husband had passed away shortly after our wedding anniversary. So when our 10th wedding, what would have been our 10th wedding anniversary came around, I know that that was immensely challenging for me. And so I know just hearing other people talking about what they were doing for their wedding anniversaries and all of that just really that really struck me very emotionally hard because my husband and I had some plans that we thought would be very nice for our 10th wedding anniversary, and we never got to follow through with them. And then, you know, obviously after you lose your loved one, you're seeing other ones take those vacations that you dreamed about, or they're doing things. Hey, cat, settle down. And she's back behind attacking the back of my chair. I'm sorry. So where was I? So yeah, you're seeing these other people, and they're talking about and they're posting pictures about all the things that they're doing, and in the back of your mind that you talked about doing that you just hadn't gotten the opportunity to do it yet. And so while all these other people are moving forward and doing these great things, taking their vacations or moving into new homes, or they're having children that are graduating or maybe getting married, and you're just kind of sitting there and you still don't even know who the hell you are because you're still struggling with identity crisis. So I think that's why some of us feel this harder than others. Like I said, there's probably a lot of factors that go into that. If you have children, sometimes I think it's easier to continue moving with the world in some aspects possibly than those of us who don't have children. So it's mixed. Like I said, we're all different. Our grief journeys are going to be so much different. Some of us will share a lot of commonalities, some of us won't. Yeah, my basic consensus is that grief basically sucks, and we're gonna leave it at that because I don't know what I would like to say. I know YouTube would highly censor, so I'm just going to say grief sucks and leave it at that. So as we begin to wrap up this video on the factors that contribute to why the second year may seem harder for some, it's important to remember that grief is a highly individual process. Not everyone will experience the second year as more challenging than the first. Some of us may find that subsequent years become progressively more manageable as they learn to integrate their loss into their lives and develop coping strategies. And yes, I'm slightly out of breath because I had to run downstairs, get the cat's toy before I come back to recording this. So we had to have a little bit of playtime. That's one thing that has changed since it's just me in the household. She doesn't have anybody else to interact with other than me, and if I'm sitting down and she wants some attention, she will let me know. It's like, come on, mommy, do something, I want to play. So yeah, and one of her favorite things is sending her kitty toys down the steps, and I have to go retrieve them for her because she won't. But seeking support from friends, family, support groups, or counseling can also be beneficial in navigating the complexities of grief, and it can help provide some comfort to us during these difficult times. I have found that support groups can be good and beneficial, but I need to limit my time with those because I am now at a point where it's not that I don't care about the individuals and what they're sharing, but I have found that too much of it can bring me back down. And I have struggled so hard to get to a point where I can pretty much deal with my days. If that makes any sense. I don't know if it does or not, but yeah, I have to limit my time there now. Um, that's hard. That is very hard, especially the online, like the Zoom groups. Watching somebody else share their story and crying, that is so incredibly hard because you can't reach out to the hug and support that you know they need. But there's thousands of miles or hundreds of miles separating you, and it's just a computer screen, and in that respect it seems so impersonal. If you're interacting with somebody in person, it's easier to share those hugs and that comfort. Doing it over computer sessions is extremely difficult. I still don't, in the Zoom sessions, I still don't feel comfortable actually being on camera. I have my camera turned off. Being on camera, I have my camera turned off. Even here, I do not feel comfortable sharing my face and my expressions. I just feel like I just feel like this whole grief journey has just really it's and I just don't feel comfortable exposing all of me. It's one thing to expose my voice to you, but yeah, I just don't feel comfortable sharing my face and my expressions with people that I ever will get to that point. I don't know. Yeah. Plus, I'm not all that great with computer skills and cameras and stuff, anyhow. So, so it might be best, might be best for quite some time to avoid that particular aspect of it. Um, obviously, obviously, if you have friends and family for support, that's wonderful. I know many of us, sadly, many of us have experienced that particular section of support vanishing from us rather than continuing to be there. And personally, I think as you're moving out of the first year into the second year and proceeding through the second year, in a way, I sometimes think that that support from your friends and family is even more important and more needed than it was in the beginning. I don't know if that'll make sense to anybody, but that's been kind of my experience. Yeah, I don't know how to explain that one any better, but I guess it's just because I think a lot of it is because you have moved out of the zombie denial initial brain fog stage, and now reality has set in. So to me, I think the reality of seeing these people slowly disappearing or vanishing, or now having limited access, I think really sucks because I think a lot of us move into this time either close to the end of the first year or moving through the second year. I think we come to that time frame where we really do need that physical, personal interaction. And I really think that I really think that can sometimes make this particular time of the grief journey just so much harder. Some of us have been lucky enough to find counseling or therapy that has proved helpful. Some of us don't have access to that at all. Um, yeah, uh, the yeah, the American, what do I want to say, the American health system seems to suck in that respect. It seems like some of the people in some of the European countries seem to be having a better time at counseling and therapy. I'm not really sure if that's just from the particular people in the online group support groups, or if they're just, are they lucky enough just to be able to access it, or is that a benefit of the European health systems? I don't know. If you know, I would love for you to comment on that for me. But I just kind of think America as a whole, the health system sucks because if, like, for those who are going through a time where you don't have a job, you've lost insurance, maybe hubby or wife was the person who was working and had that, and then once you don't have insurance, they expect you to pay out the wazoo for such services. And for many grieving spouses, you suddenly find yourself on a very fixed budget. Like, there is no wiggle at all. So a lot of people, I think, that could benefit from the extra counseling and therapy, we just don't have access to it. Um, I know I was the one that actually carried the health insurance for us because my job had a much better plan than his did. So I was the one his did. So I was the one who carried it. Um, not just at the job that I had when he passed away, but at another job previous to that as well. I actually had the health insurance for both of us, and it was pretty good. Um, and we did have access to certain types of counseling and therapy things, but at the time, obviously, that wasn't a needed um, benefit that we needed at that time. And now that we do, I don't have the health insurance. So that's another gripe that I have with. I have a lot of gripes right now with the American society, and I could probably ramble on that for a very long time. But I'll try not to because, yeah, you probably don't want to hear that. But yeah, I just know that there are a lot of individuals out there who, they would love to be able to do. They've said so. They would love to be able to do counseling or therapy, and they just cannot afford it, because they would have to pay out of pocket, and it's extremely costly if you don't have the insurance to cover it. So, what are you going to do? You basically have to find things and research things on your own, and you have to try to implement them on yourself, which for many of us, probably during the first year, you're not really capable of researching that kind of thing. You don't even know what the heck you're looking for. Um, I know probably the first 6 to 8 months for me, like in the back of my mind, I knew the concept of support groups and counseling and stuff like that. But being able to act upon it, to wisely, critically analyze what was best for me, I really wasn't at a good point to be able to do that. So for me, it was about the first 8 months really sucked in that respect. And then from the 8 months moving into this second year, cognitively, analytically, I am thinking through more things as to what's more beneficial for me, what I need, what, that type of thing. I couldn't in the last 5 months, probably in the last 5 months, that I have joined a couple groups that have the online meetings, which, like I said, again, it's helpful in a lot of respects, but I do have to limit. I found I do have to limit. I found I do have to limit myself. I particularly like the ones that they will have the sessions set up where there's like an educational section. Then they may do a breakout room where you can go into the Zoom room or whatever you call it with just a couple members of the group. Then you come back out of that after a couple of minutes and you have another educational piece of content. And then you can go back into a breakout room. And they might do that like 2 or 3 times for a session, which the educational parts I find very helpful. It's the fact that too much of other grieving spouses brings me down, and I know that's sad to say, and I just want to highly stress that it's not that I don't care for other grieving spouses, because I do, but I think it brings me down so badly because it breaks my heart to see somebody else going through the hell that I am going through, and knowing that, it's not just a couple of us, there are like lots of us that are going through this. So, yeah. But yeah, okay, so I have kind of rambled a lot on the conclusion part, probably more than you wanted me to. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. I want to thank you so much for joining me for today's video. It's kind of hard for me to come out and start sharing some of my personal story, but I'm hoping that in doing so, it does help somebody. At least that's my intention. If you found this content helpful, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel so that you'll always know when new content is available. As always, please feel free to comment on any of my videos, especially today's video. I would really love to see an interaction from others in the comments section regarding their experience with the second year. So I would highly encourage that if you see this video, and know that I always would love to hear from you. That's one of the reasons why I created this channel. I want to start discussions within a community. So yes, please feel free to comment. I really do want to hear from you. If there's any content or topic that you'd like me to research and post about in the future, please let me know that too. I am very willing to research ideas, concepts, whatever topics you would like me to. So please let me know that in the comments section too. I've been Sissy, and I am wishing you hope, light, and love. And I am looking forward to seeing you in the next video. So until then, take care, my friend.